time to build another bass boat. I've done a lot of these vlogs and I think you guys like making them, and today is the first vlog of my what season is this? 2021 season boat build. You have never seen one built. We're not going to do that in this video. You're not going to see my entire boat built from start to finish because you've seen that for the last 2 years. But if you haven't, go watch those other videos and I'll show you exactly what goes on right here. Right here behind me, you see this big green thing? That is one of the molds that they're going to use for one of the boats. So after you've chosen your colors, you've picked out what colors that you want for your boat, the first thing they do is they start taping off the hull. And then it goes over to the spray booth, and that's the first thing that happens. Starts with the paint first. Right now he's just spraying it in the hole. After the gel coat dries, then the next thing we do is we take it over to this chopper gun and they start to put the fiberglass on the back side of the paint. After they pop it all out of the mold, that sets for a day 2 in the mold, then they take it over to this side and they start to trim all the edges out of it. This is the trim booth over here. That's where they start to trim all the excess fiberglass out. It comes out here and they start to put all the holes in it where for your bilge pumps, for the console, they'll put holes in it for cut some of the edging for the compartments. It comes to this area right here, and that's where you'll take care of all the drilling, cutting, and just kind of prepping it to be put together. Yeah, I can make this work. And the next step is where they come over here to, I'm going to call it pre-rigging. That's when they're going to start putting all the wiring harnesses in it. They're going to start to it kind of starts to take shape. They put the 2 pieces together and you can see it starts to look like a boat. It happens pretty fast. They get from the spray booth all the way over here in about 3 days. It really starts to take shape. Now in this area, you see we're kind of getting closer and closer to the door. And what that means is it's almost over with. This is the last stage. This is where they're going to start to put lids on. This is where they're going to start to put carpet in the boat, your rigging, all your electronics. They'll hang the engine. This is where the last and finishing stages. It's sort of like building a house. This is where the boat seems to set the most of the time because you get into the intricate details of making it a finished project. And after this, put it on the trailer and it's out of here. So, as I mentioned, there's 4 boats that you can run now. 19, 20, well 18, 19, 20, 21. And I've often thought about, dude, why don't you run a 19 and a half? Save on towing, it's just a smaller package. Do I really need a 250 horsepower? And do I really need a 20 or 21 foot boat? I've often thought about running a 19 footer. And they've even come out with a new 18 footer, a 185 this year that's rated for 150. Could it be a viable option for fishing, tournament fishing? Absolutely. Let's look at the specs on the F185 that they have. Why could I run it? I think so. I think that's a viable option, even the 19 foot. It's 18 and a half foot long. You can get it on a single or tandem axle trailer. It has plenty of storage, has a big deck, and it's rated for 150, so it's legal. In FLW Tour, the Major League Fishing Big 5, we have to have at least 150 horsepower. So I meet all the requirements for its horsepower, length, and fishability. It would work. Likewise, we have a 195 that's 19 and a half foot long. It comes on a single or tandem axle trailer. Plenty of storage. Most of the time I'm fishing by myself anyway, so space really isn't an issue. Plenty of storage. The boat is super fast. If you've ever run the 195 with a 200, it runs 70, 71, 72 mile an hour easy. Probably a little bit faster than that, but you're going to average out somewhere between 70 and 72 mile an hour with a 200. It's a viable option for me to fish in Major League Fishing on the Big 5. It would do everything that I need it to do. Let's walk over here and look at a hull of a 20 and a 19. See if you can actually tell the difference between the two. So this is the a 195 hull right here. You can see it. It doesn't even have any of the flooring in it yet. This is basically the base hull. This is what you're looking at when you're fishing right here. And you sit it on the trailer. That's a 19 and a half footer. Okay. Now I'm gonna walk over here and I'm gonna show you the 20 footers. 20 foot 5 inches, 20 and a half. I can't remember if it's 20 foot 5 or 20 and a half. That's basically just a few inches difference. And here it is right here. This is a 20 footer. See if you can tell the difference. It's not really that big of a difference. This is a 20 footer. You can see it's a little bit wider than the 195. But in lengthwise, it's literally 12 inches longer than the other boats. So it's not that big a difference. The horsepower difference, you can run a 250 on the 205 where you can only run a 200 on the 195. All right, so you see right behind me, this is all the engines that's gonna go on the boats. And the 195 is rated, the max horsepower is a 200 horsepower. The 185, the max horsepower is a 150. The 205 F20s and the 215s are all rated for 250s. And one of the biggest things that I always hear people say, oh shoot, I'm about to drop you. One thing that people always worry about is how fast is the boat. To be completely honest with you, speed is not influenced on my decision of what boat to run. I really don't care how fast the boat goes, because honestly 4 or 5 mile an hour doesn't get me that much faster. It doesn't really matter, and most of the time I ride around somewhere between 40 to 50 miles an hour anyway, so speed doesn't really influence my decision on what boat to run. It is all about fishability, and just something that feels good to me is all that really matters. So just to be clear, some of the smaller rigs that we have here at Falcon, completely viable option for you guys to tournament fish at home. But I will say, for this serious tournament angler, you do have some limitations with the smaller rig. It's not speed. It's not speed. It's not rough water. That's really a huge myth. Will a bigger rig handle rough water better? A little bit, but it's all about the driver. It's really not about the length of the boat. When you're talking about Great Lakes type of big water, I've seen people in 18 and 19 foot boats go the same places that I go. You know how to drive a boat, you can do it. Here's probably the biggest limiting factor with smaller rigs when it comes to especially professional tournament fishing. All right. Even though big water really isn't the biggest issue for me, the biggest issue for me with running a 195 versus a 205 is actually range. What I mean by that is how far I can actually go. On the 195, it has a 36 gallon. Opie, it's a 36 gallons is what the 195 holds, right? 36 gallons of fuel? 40 gallons of fuel in the 195 and
31 gallons in the 185.
31 gallons in the 185 and then 50 in 205. So range is a big deal for me, all right? When it comes to boat size, I don't really worry about not being able to get back because it's too rough and I have a 19 versus a 20 footer. Folks, just face the fact. The boat length is not going to hinder me from getting back, but not having enough fuel will hinder me from getting back if I make a long run. So one of the downsides to running a smaller rig is range, how far I go. There's a couple times a year where I will make a long run where I'll only have 2 to 3 hours to fish and I need to get back. And fuel capacity it matters. So 40 gallons of fuel, there's times where 40 gallons isn't enough. And 31 gallons like what the 185 has, there's times where that's not enough fuel and I do need 50 gallons of fuel. So that is one of the downsides to running a smaller rig. So I tend to like the 20 foot boat over the 19 for this reason. It's fishability. I'm not talking about space. I'm not talking about room. It has nothing to do with that. Fishability, let me explain it. I'm going to try to explain that the best way I can with some props here. Let me find a few things to use. So let's pretend we're going to draw a comparison. I hope this makes sense. This is my 19. this is my 21 footer. I know this is a little bit of exaggeration, but this is the best way I can think to draw this comparison. On my 19-foot boat, we have what I consider a footprint. How big the boat is, how much boat is in the water. Let's just say this is 19 foot. I've got 19 foot of fiberglass that's in the water. With my 20 foot or my 21 foot, I've got 20 or 21 foot of fiberglass that's actually in the water. When I refer to fishability, this is what I'm talking about, the footprint. How much fiberglass do I actually have in the water while I'm fishing? Not running, but while I'm actually on the front deck of the boat bass fishing. When I have more fiberglass touching the water, the boat's more stable. The boat may not react quite as quickly on the trolling motor. A shorter boat is going to react. When I hit the trolling motor to the left or the right, it's going to react a lot more quickly. But the other thing it does is a shorter boat is going to blow around a little bit more because there's not as much fiberglass in the water. When wind blows, the 19-footer is going to move a lot easier because there's not as much fiberglass in the water. When I've got a bigger boat, more fiberglass in the water, when wind blows, it doesn't spin around quite as easily. So for me, that's why I like to run a little bit bigger boat. The 20 and the 21, they're not going to react quite as quickly on the trolling motor. So when I move it to the left, when I bump the trolling motor, because I have more fiberglass in the water, a bigger footprint, the boat just responds in a much more controlled manner. But with some of the smaller rigs, since you have a smaller footprint, there's less resistance, less boat in the water. When you hit the trolling motor, it's going to respond. It's going to go left, it's going to go right, it's going to pull faster. Your trolling motor is going to be able to pull the boat a lot faster, but you can't stop quite as quickly because you don't have as much resistance, as much fiberglass in the water. So for me, what I've noticed is the best point of entry for a fishing boat has been a 20-foot boat. The 21, it responds extremely slow, but it stops a lot easier. For me, I've noticed that the 20-foot boat seems to be the best for the way I like to fish. All right, so this is my boat for this year. The F20 Predator is what I went with. Again, I've run a 20-foot for the last 4 years. You can see I went back with a pretty simple color scheme. I like my boats pretty simple. You notice that I've kept them monotone over the years. I don't like to do a lot of color transitions. I like to keep it pretty simple. So this is it. I went back with the black and red. The 20, we have a little different character in it. I don't know if you can see. I did a ghosted Falcon head on this one. You can see this is black frost. I've had that color in every boat that I've had, but I just went with a straight gel coat on the bird head. So out there in the sun, you'll be able to see it a lot better than you can see it right here. But I did that, and I just did one simple red pinstripe around the cap. So the whole boat's black with just a little bit of red around it, and that's it. All right, y'all, so this is my boat, and I think it's time to finally probably start unloading all my equipment. I'm running with the Garmin's this year. I'm doing a Motor Guide trolling motor, and all my power poles and everything's in my truck, so it's time to unload all that stuff, get it here in the shop, because tomorrow my boat goes on the line and they'll start making it an actual fishing machine.
Yeah, I'm not sure.